2021, April 3rd. It's not a day that means anything to people. It was the 3rd, which was after Good Friday, and before Easter the next day, and to some of you, the day after that. There's also an Easter Monday, but who cares? Anyway, I went and had a brunch because time is meaningless to us now because of what's been happening over the past year and a half. And why not have Easter on the day before everyone else celebrates Easter? It's not like fire will rain from the sky when we decide to have Easter on a different day. I don't think Jesus has much of an opinion on that. So that's what we did. We went to a bar on the north side of Minneapolis. It's actually quite popular. I'm not going to say the name of it, but it's there. And my brother lives on a suburb really close to this bar. And we had some reservations about that because I went with my mother, and every time I go there, every single time something bad happens to me or me and the car. Like, every time I go there, bad things just happen because crime is rampant. Minneapolis is the crime capital of the entire universe. All crime originates from Minneapolis, it seems, especially this new wave, which, because of a minor incident that happened last year, that means it's okay to commit crime all the time. And that's what's happening in Minneapolis. There's always crime all the time. And since 2020, every time I go to Minneapolis, I get jumped. And I get killed in some way, either by gun or knife, or just by fist. I just get killed every time I go to Minneapolis. Every single time. I am murdered with every visit. And you will not believe how difficult the recovery from that is. It is extremely difficult to recover from being murdered. Not impossible, like the liberal media wants you to think, but it's extremely difficult, okay? I'm a Sigma male, and I know all the skills necessary to be unmurdered. So yeah, I went to Minneapolis like 10 times over the last year, and, well, actually it was 8. 8 times over the last year, murdered every time by bloodthirsty Antifas. And that's the sad reality that Minneapolis is in right now. You see, since George Floyd was killed, everything was destroyed, and no one's cleaning up the mess. In fact, the mess is still there. There are no buildings that are intact. It's just a pile of concrete and glass and wood and nails. And the only reason people are able to get from place to place is because you have the light rail ramming through it and snowplows making improvised streets. That's the real Minneapolis. I would know. I have been there. No buildings, just rubble. And even then, when people try to make some kind of structure to sell things or have a business, it gets knocked down again by rioting, looting, and Antifa. But strangely, there's one thing that they left, and this is even more sad than the rest of it. They destroyed everything except U.S. Bank Stadium. A lot of taxpayer money went to that, and worse yet, the Vikings team is still playing in it. It's not like we got anything out of that deal, but sure, let's keep the stadium there. Why not? So, because of this, Minneapolis is a failure. And all the cities around the world are failing. Everyone is moving out in droves to rural towns. Everyone's moving to places like Aitkin, Brainerd. They're becoming the new triumphant communities in all the darkness. You see, not too long ago, Minneapolis was white. The people were white. The sidewalks were white. The buildings were white. The sky, the grass, everything, just this white, peaceful slate. You couldn't really see anything, but nothing bad happened to it, or in it. Nothing bad happened in this purely white slate. Then suddenly, George Floyd got killed, and the colored people went out of their cave. The contrast went down, and, people could see things, and they were bad things, and everything was destroyed. And it keeps getting destroyed. Like, once a week or so, there is a suicide nuclear attack. And there's just a bunch of dirt and dust, and then it gets frigid because there's no sun. There's no light in Minneapolis. It's all darkness now. It's all dark people walking to dark places, doing dark things. Of course, this is all nonsense. The reason I make this video is because people who don't live in Minneapolis, like, not even that far, just go to St. Cloud, or there's some crazies in Rochester, just people in any direction, they have opinions like this, unironically, about Minneapolis. They think it's 7 times worse than what I just described, and 1,000 times worse than the reality. There is an uptick in crime in Minneapolis, but that's not a new thing. There was a brief uptick in the 90s, and people were holding up signs that said Murderapolis. But crime went down, and it's happening again. And I have some optimism that the crime will go down again. But it won't if the institutions of the city keep enabling the crime. Sometimes the enforcement is the problem, and people see what the police are doing as some kind of challenge, I trust the opinions of criminologists more than the police. The police are supposed to get bad guys out of there and take them away. That's their job. And it's not that I'm opposed to that. It's when police officers start feeling like they are the only thing between a functioning society and the chaos I just described. Buildings just blowing up all the time, and suicide nuclear attacks, which don't happen. Because I live in DF land. Or, as the woke crowd calls it, reality. Yeah, there are bad things that happen in Minneapolis. That doesn't make Brainerd pure. It's not like bad things don't happen in Brainerd or Aitkin. But they can, And Brainerd and Aitkin aren't any more special than the urban areas of Duluth, Minneapolis. Just stop, okay? I know there's a coal miner in Wyoming somewhere that has some very strong opinions about the city, and they make assumptions, and when I tell them, no, it's not that bad, they'll just not believe me, even though I live here, and the coal miner in Wyoming hasn't visited once, and they're afraid to. But I've done this 8 times over the past year, and while I did get murdered every time, I died. I lost my life, and I recovered. Because I'm such an alpha male, that suddenly means I am the toughest guy in St. Cloud, or Brainerd, or Aitkin, just everywhere else in Minnesota. I'm the toughest guy because I've been to Minneapolis and visit regularly. I challenge the rest of the state to do that, though. And yeah, no, I don't actually get murdered every time. There are some sketchy things that I can see, but the worst I have seen is panhandling.
There is a reminder for Clark.
Oh yeah, I also have a job. I live in a suburb. Not as chaotic as you think it is. And when there is a spike in Minneapolis, it's not always high forever. It's not like we're Detroit or East St. Louis. It's not something you can expect. And if you're looking for a weapon to bring with you to Minneapolis, if you're not alpha enough to do that, or sigma, or whatever you guys are calling it, there's this really big one that you can use, and a lot of people do, and it's really effective at stopping crime. It's called the sun. If you do things during the day, it's very unlikely you'll be the victim of any criminal activity because, yeah, full truth, I've been to Minneapolis tens of times. I haven't made a full count, but yeah, and I'm alive, and I'm still alive. I've died 0 times in reality. But hey, you know, reality is more boring than the fantasies you might see in TV or online. It's also a lot less stressful, so think about that. Think about the real world. Trust your eyes and ears, because if you don't, then it will hurt you. That is my perspective on Minneapolis. And a lot of people in Minnesota, in and out of Minneapolis, feel the same way. That's it for the moment, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.